Hi, I'm Kristin Omdahl and welcome back to my studio. In this video, I want to show you some tips and tricks for getting started making one of the projects from my brand new book, 24 Crochet Hats, Interesting Techniques and Inclusive Sizing for Men, Women, Children, and Babies. Let's get started. Okay, so in the part 1 video, I showed you how to make one motif, which really showed you all of the stitches that you're going to be using for this whole project. So you already have seen how to do all of the stitches. Now, in order to have a successful experience making seamless motifs join as you go without cutting yarn between the motifs, if this is something you've never done before, the key to success is knowing how to read the charts, I think. So once you understand what all of these different colors mean in the charts and how to read a joining chart like this, since the hat doesn't remain a flat piece and we're actually joining it to itself to create a three-dimensional piece, there's a few extra components on this chart that you would not necessarily find on a regular seamless join as you go motif chart, simply because I have to show you how you join it together as well, meaning this shading here, but we'll get to that. First, I wanted to show you how to read the color coding on the chart. So if you look down here from motif 1, and they are numbered, instead of being numbered by rounds, I numbered the motif. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, then 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. Then after the end of motif 13, you will join it to motifs 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, and all of that is marked very clearly on the charts. And if you don't like reading charts, this is all written out in great detail in the pattern as well. But I digress. Let's read how to understand the different color coding on the chart. So if you remember in video part 1, I showed you how to make the one motif by starting with a chain 20 instead of starting with the chain 5. And you may have wondered, why did we do that? That's because in order to join these motifs together without cutting yarn between the motifs, we have to start the motifs from the outside edge, work our way in our beginning chain, and then work our way back out in the motifs. That's the only way to be able to join motifs without cutting yarn in between them. Very interesting, but slightly different if you've never done it before. Okay, so here is that original chain 20, then slip stitch to the 5th chain to form a ring, and that is always going to be marked in red on these charts. Then in black is what you work on after the red, and that is completing round 1, then starting and completing round 2, then starting round 3, and you only work round 3 in black until you come to another red section, and you work black back to red, notating that it's a new motif. So then you work that beginning chain all the way back from outside edge to inside, and you start with your chain 5 down here, then repeat, and then you're going to complete round 2 of motif 2, complete round 3 of motif 2. Then on round 3 of motif 2, we're not only going to work a partially completed round like we did on motif 1, but we're also going to join it to motif 1 as we go, just like you would when you were joining motifs in regular motif joining fashion, meaning on this side edge here, we'll replace the chain 1 with a slip stitch, and here. Then in the corner, we replace the chain 3 with a chain 1, slip stitch to the adjacent motifs, chain 3 space, chain 1, and that's what gives us that joined edge along here. Then we can continue working in round 3 of motif 2, but we partially complete it to here because that's where it comes back to red. And so then how we worked motif 2 partially, we're going to repeat that same thing for 3, 4, 5, and come to motif 6. Now notice that all of these motifs have a blue section along the top except for the last motif in the row, and that's because motif 6 is not partially finished on the outside round. We finished the motif, and then it comes to a blue section, and that blue section signifies where we are going to complete or pick up where we left off on those motifs and then finish these motifs as we're working across. So it's chain 1, slip stitch, chain 1, then 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 doubles, chain 1, 3 doubles. Then it's a chain 1, slip stitch, and chain 1, and this is what's creating those chain 3 corners and joining them together. So we work all the way across back to here. Then notice how here it either goes to red or to green. Well, anytime it goes back to red, you want to go back to starting a new motif. And so from here, we're going to start motif 7, starting with the red, then moving on to the black, coming back up here, switching back to red to start motif 8. And the difference between motif 8 and motif 2 is that now we are joining on 2 sides. So we're slip stitching to join in the adjacent motif 7, and then once we work our corner here, then we're slip stitching to join in motif 8 to motif 2. Other than this second row of motifs joining on 2 sides instead of only 1 side, these motifs are otherwise the same as the motifs in the first row. So when you come to the joining section here in blue, you'll notice that as you come to red for the third row of motifs, which actually is only 1 motif, it's a hexagon. And the reason it's a hexagon is so that there is a side for joining each of the 6 motifs along the second row. And that's what gives us a crown that joins the whole hat together. So it sounds complicated, but it really isn't. You're really just going to start it the same way you started all the other motifs, but instead of having 4 repeats of the pattern in each round, there's 6 repeats. So just follow along, and it's really a lot more similar to the square motifs than you'd think. Now, where it gets different is as we're joining this outside third round to the adjacent motifs, you're joining 1 side at a time to a different motif. So side A here joins to motif 7, side B joins to motif 8, but keep in mind we're joining it the same way we joined every other motif since the beginning of the project. Side C joins to motif 9, side D joins to motif 10, and notice how this is all labeled properly on the chart. So if you get confused about where to go, it's all written there as well, and it's all explained in great detail in the written instructions as well. So then motif 11, or side E is joined to motif 11, and side F is joined to motif 12. Now, you may wonder, well, what is this section here? Because this joins to itself, we actually, to show a 2-dimensional chart for a 3-dimensional project, I ended up having to show motif 12 on both sides of the chart. So it is shaded to represent the fact that it is a duplicate of this one. It is not another set of motifs over here. And so this green section here represents how you're joining, how you're partially completing the remainder of motifs 7 and 1, but also simultaneously at the same time joining them to the side of motifs 12 and 6 respectively. And that is what creates the joined tube of the hat. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions at all, please leave them for me in the comments. And everything we talked about today is linked in the video description below. Let us make time to create, share, and inspire today and every day. I'll see you in the next video.